Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and I'm excited to be joined today by Trevor Milton, the founder and CEO of Nikola Motor. On a pretty big day for the company, you guys completed your merger, well, almost completed the merger today with VTIQ, and shortly on Thursday, I believe, you'll be listed publicly under NKLA. So congrats on that, Trevor. Any thoughts for today?
Yeah, thanks, man. Big day, obviously. I had no idea how much work went into going into becoming listed on the NASDAQ or being publicly traded. It was more work than I've ever imagined in my life on anything. And it also makes it a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable. So, being publicly traded, people get to see, the good and the bad about your company. So I actually kind of think that's good because up to this point, it's all been kind of speculation across the board from either people that like us or don't like us. And now there's a lot of facts out there, and that's probably the best part about it is finally we get to talk about stuff that's actually filed with the SEC. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's probably been a crazy day for you to do the interview today and hopefully go through some of those facts and stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, it was. It's Thursday. Obviously, that's a big day. That's when we actually ring the bell in the NASDAQ, and the stock will switch over from VTIQ to NKLA. So. Big couple days here, and I'm glad to have you here. And obviously, a lot of your fans would love to know, tons of questions, and I'm happy to answer them. Let's jump in. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, a lot of interest in Nikola from the Tesla community. So I think where I'd love to start is just some more details on the merger. So when things switch over on Thursday, does anything really change, or is it kind of just trade the same way that the VTIQ does right now? Like, does the share price stay at $33, or how's that all work?
So if someone has a share in VTIQ, they still have a share in Nikola, and it automatically trades over. So today was the vote, which means it passed. So that means now we're guaranteed to go into be publicly traded on the NASDAQ as NKLA, and that switches over automatically. So a shareholder doesn't have to do anything. If they own one share in VTIQ, it automatically will switch over on Thursday to NKLA. So price, I can't get into price because I'm not allowed to talk about things as an officer, but I can tell you that if nothing were to change, yes, it would switch over to the same amount. But as you know, there's tons of trades every second.
Sure.
And you never know where that's going to go right before. But ultimately, if you have a dollar, if you have a dollar before, you have a dollar after, assuming that there's no change in trading during those moments.
Right. Which of course there would be. But there's no additional shares that are coming in and, changing the equation significantly from where it's at today through where it's at on Thursday.
No, there is with the merger. That's the whole idea of the merger. So it was preset. If you look in the S4 filings, it was $3.3 billion, set at the valuation of $10 on the essentially on VectoIQ price. So because the share price is about 30, I think it was around $32 or $33 today.
Roughly.
That means the company is somewhere right around about that $12 billion mark going into Thursday on the merger.
Okay.
So there is more shares that are issued because Nikola has more. The value of Nikola was much greater than the value of VectoIQ, so you have to add those shares to equate the value. So,
okay, yeah, I guess sort of the essence of the question. I think I saw something on Twitter, and I don't have the tweets pulled up in front of me right now, but I think there were some questions about if the share counts being added on Thursday were going to be dilutionary from VTIQ owners of today. Does that question make sense?
It's a totally good question. We got a lot of them actually today around that same question, and what we told everyone is that most all the shares, I own a little over 40% of the company pre-merger. So I'm locked up for over a year on most everything. They did have me sell a little bit. They actually kind of forced me into selling a little bit of those shares. They didn't want me to have absolute control over everything. So there's a little bit out there, but ultimately the float should be, there are more people coming in that are going to be selling shares, but most everyone we have are really big institutional investors that are going to be holding shares. So it won't really have it's not like you have 100, I can't really give any numbers, but it's not like you have an enormous amount of shares hitting the market to be sold. Most of our shareholders are all very long-term shareholders that like to hold stuff for 5, 10, 15 years.
Sure. So are you guys kind of surprised at the valuation that it's gone up, pretty rapidly here over the last, 3 or 4 weeks or a couple months, I guess?
The pivotal moment for Nikola when everything started changing completely was when we did the big joint venture with Iveco. That was like the moment. And we'll get into that today if you have any questions on that.
Yeah.
But we did a huge joint venture with Iveco in Europe. And we were able to use a multi-billion-dollar truck program that they had developed over 4 years to reconfigure with our truck. We already had our own designs, and we essentially laid them over, and they helped us commercialize the entire truck, and we did a 50-50 joint venture in Europe. So we now have trucks coming off the assembly line next year in production, and we have them coming off the assembly line right now in testing with, they're all hand built on these assembly lines. The first, probably the first 50 or 100 trucks are all kind of very manually built, and then it becomes a lot more automated. But the moment that we announced that, and now that people know we have trucks coming out in full production, that we do have all of our own, our own powertrain, batteries, battery management systems, controls, everything is really done in-house by Nikola. When they realized that combination with Iveco, that was kind of the moment when everything changed, because they said, oh my gosh, one, Iveco validated these guys. They've been in there to look at them. They knew it was real. They got a full production truck, and they're going to be first in the world with a full production truck for a Class 8 zero-emission truck over 300 miles. So that was a huge deal. I think that was a pivotal moment when I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's really, it's getting easier now. Because up at that point, it was it was pretty tough getting to that point. And it became a lot easier after that.
And easier from the stance that you're going to be able to manufacture these things now versus before it was a little bit unclear about how that would unfold, or what do you mean?
Yeah, well, a lot of things. Just the one, credibility, that's a big one. But number two is people, today we'll get into this a little bit. People think that we have a beef with Tesla or Elon. It's actually not true. There's a huge amount of support here at Nikola with Tesla, and a lot of our guys, we give them incentive to go and buy these cars, and we want them to. We have Tesla chargers going up all over our facility out front. We want our people to drive these cars. It's actually really cool. And we have I've had one for 5 years straight, a Model S. So I'm the one thing we've learned is what Elon actually had a lot of trouble with. And this is not against him. Anyone else would have failed. So what I'm saying is that trying to build your own factory from the ground up is an absolute nightmare. It takes, unless you have billions and billions and billions of dollars to do it, and you're first in market like Tesla was, you're going to fail. I'm like, whenever someone talks to me, they're like, they want advice on starting a company. I'm like, don't build your own factory. You're going to go bankrupt. You don't know what you're doing. Don't do it. It's a total mistake. Now, Tesla's been able to pull it off, but they've had a lot of problems with it. It's been very difficult, and anyone else would have failed. So I didn't want to go down that same path. I was like, look, if they had that much difficulty getting up and running, I'm going to fall flat on my face because I don't have the resources they have right at the time. So we decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a different business model. I'm going to partner with everybody. I'm not going to do anything myself. I'm going to partner with everyone. So now we've started partnering with the biggest people in the world to actually help us. And that's why you've seen the stock go to where it is because now in Europe, we have our full joint venture coming out full production, next year. Testing vehicles coming off the line right now. That's 3 years ahead of the schedule we thought we could have done. And next year we have our factory in Phoenix. We'll have limited trucks coming out of there on as well here in Phoenix. We're breaking ground, here shortly at our facility here in Phoenix. But that's all being built and designed by Iveco. So rather than us, where we don't have any factory experience, we're getting the best of the best to come in and actually do it for us.
So that joint venture was kind of established in Europe, but it will extend through your operations worldwide, essentially?
No, it's only in Europe, but we get free services from them in that original investment because we traded for stock for services. And part of that was that they would help us actually design, engineer, and lay out, and also get our factory up and running here in America. So that was a big deal for us because now we're getting their entire factory team over here to, they're working with all the architects, designing, engineering, layout, flow, all the robotic companies, the assembly guys, the paint guys, all that stuff's being done by their team. And I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. It was so new to me. So it's pretty cool having those guys help us fix everything.
So it's sort of a replication of the process that they have started already over there here in the US then?
Yeah, I always tell people, do what you suck, find people that are great at what you suck at. And, and that's really true because there's it's funny, you'll find out I'm a really open, honest guy. There's a lot of things I suck at, but I'm really good at a couple things. And so I find that people around me that are incredible at what I'm not good at. And that's what we've done in business too, is we find the people that are amazing at what we're not good at. And we don't try to be good at everything. We just try to be good at what we're good at. And we've done pretty well. That's where the valuation has come in.
Sure. So let's talk more about the production roadmap then, because you guys have kind of a lot on the slate. I think 7 different vehicles. You have sort of multiple powertrains in some cases on those product lines.
Yeah.
Then you also have the hydrogen stations as well. So it seems like a lot. And obviously you guys are getting into capital infusion now and you're bringing on some partners to help with that. I'd love to talk about just how you see that sort of developing. It sounds like you're starting with the Nikola Tre in this first instance. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll give you the timeline and then the vehicles. Normally, if you were to do all this yourself, you'd be in a lot of trouble. And I think that's what's so cool about our business model is, so the Nikola Tre is being done first in Europe right now. And that truck is a battery electric version. It goes over 300 miles. It can pull a full 80,000 pound load, and it's got over 700 kilowatt hours on board. So it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's a totally decked out, awesome zero emission truck, all lithium batteries, very similar to what you'd find on an electric vehicle, just a very, very complicated battery electric truck when it comes to trying to make that much battery actually work together and all the BMS systems work together. So that truck is being done in Europe by VTIQ with us in our joint venture, and they're going to build them all for Europe. And they have their own sales, service, and warranty network that we'll be utilizing in our joint venture. So literally it was, all that work is all done. Now they're going to be rolling it all out. They're managing the joint venture. They're pushing it all out. We are really the face of it, the brand of it, the technology inside, and they're using their back end, which is really good. So almost no work there other than our team making sure those trucks are updated with software and running right. That same truck will be enveloped. That's a battery electric version. And that same truck, or that same exact powertrain, is put on our truck called the Nikola 2. The Nikola 2 is a US version. It's exact same powertrain, except for it has a fuel cell on board also. So what a lot of people don't know is fuel cell and batteries actually don't really compete with each other. It's kind of a misinformation thing that some people, and I'll get into that later with you. But the hydrogen truck uses the exact same powertrain. So there's almost no development there. You're just adding a fuel cell as a generator. And so that's what that one does here in America. VTIQ was helping us prepare that one as well for production, even though it's 100% owned by Nikola in the United States. The next in line that we have is, those are the only 2 real big Class 8 over-the-road programs we're doing, is battery electric and hydrogen. That's it. Then the next one we have, obviously, is one that was very popular to everyone that a lot of people know about. It's called the Nikola Badger. It's an electric pickup truck. And this is really unique because it's not just a battery electric pickup truck. It's the first ever kind of like hypervised blended truck. That means you can order it with battery electric only, and you can later put a fuel cell generator on it. So it's all about being, you can package it however you want. You can order it as a fuel cell and battery, or just as a battery, and then add fuel cell later. So a lot of customers that don't have the hydrogen in their city yet, they'll order it as a battery electric, and 2-3 years down the road, they can put the fuel cell in it if they want to. It's fully upgradable. And that one's an interesting one because it was really catered to the Ford F-150 market, the big market where people are buying trucks for business, not necessarily like the consumer market where kind of like the Rivian. The Rivian's a very consumer oriented market, like a lot of lifestyle, snowboarders, outdoor guys, all that. Like Nikola was all about the commercial vehicle market. So F-150, off-road, pulling trailers up a hill. That's what that one is. That one will be done with a partner, another OEM. It'll be announced sometime here shortly. Don't know the day yet, but we're pretty far into line it, to essentially nailing that one down. And that OEM will actually build it, service it, warranty it, and sell it for us. And so we won't do any of that. We won't have to do any of that. The next product lines are a little bit down the chain, or more off-road, like they're kind of more of a consumer product that's more, for me, is what I call the way to communicate with our shareholders. So a lot of investors will never touch a semi-truck, just never will. They'll never go for a ride in a semi-truck. They'll never want to drive a semi-truck. So the way that we communicate with our investors is through the other products that we have, and that's the off-road NZT, Net Zero Toll, is what it stands for. And that is the off-road kind of Jeep. It's all a battery electric, over 100 kilowatt hours, 200 to 300 miles on a charge, and it's made to, it's got 17 to 20 inches of travel. So it's just this total off-road beast made to go 60 miles an hour out in the desert, or 100 miles an hour, whatever, if you want to die. And then the last one would be is the watercraft, the Nikola Wave, and that's an electric wave runner. And I love the lake. My Instagram name is Lake Pal Trevor, and so I'm a hardcore. I love the lake, and I just got tired of hearing those damn jet skis buzzing around everywhere and the oil in the water. I'd go jump in the water and I'd look up and I'd see a film of oil, and it just pissed me off. So finally, I just told my team we're building one of them, and never thought it would be so successful, but it's been pretty incredible. So that's the whole product portfolio for you.
Sure. So on the timelines of sort of those later vehicles, are those like a couple years out, or just kind of whenever you guys feel like you can get around to them after focusing more on like the commercial businesses, or how do you sort of envision that playing out?
So what's interesting is the one we thought would be kind of hard, the watercraft, is actually the easiest out of all of them. It was from beginning to end will be 18 months into it, from beginning to production on that. That was way faster than we ever thought. That comes out next year. The off-road vehicle we've been working on for over 4 years now. So that was one of the most complex because, as you can imagine, batteries, they do burn down. And rolling a vehicle is not the safest thing. And these vehicles get rolled all the time. So we had to come up with a very safe anti-propagation battery. So it has to pass full nail penetration. And it also had to pass a 20 G shock and load throughout the entire drive cycle. And these are really stressful situations. So the battery took us about 3 years to figure out on that, to where it would never essentially burn down and kill a family inside of it. I shouldn't say never. Anything's possible.
Sure.
We tried to limit it. We've never had one yet, and we pray that we won't. But the odds are that we will have, someone will have a fire with one, and we're just you have to do everything you can to engineer it out. So those both come out to market next year. We're less than 12 months away from production on those. So, and we're also less than 12 months away from production on the Nikola tray, for Europe. The ones with the longest lead time are the Badger. That's 2022. And the Nikola 2, which is a fuel cell, which is the end of 2022 as well.
Okay, got it. So it sounds like in that portfolio, I followed Nikola, pretty closely over the years, but not exhaustively. It sounds like there's a lot of implementation of battery electric versus hydrogen. And is that an evolution over time that has come with advancements in battery technology, or just as you guys have watched the market develop? Or I'd just love to hear a little bit more perspective on how you guys have come to those decisions.
Yeah, it's interesting because I believe that in life, there's almost no one size fits all in life, right? Like when you get into something, usually one thing never fixes everything. Everyone loses weight differently in life. There's not like one pill someone can take and everyone loses weight. Everyone's body's different. And what I've learned in life is that, and the same thing in the trucking world, every application is so different that you come to realize that hydrogen does not make sense in some of those areas. And you also learn that battery doesn't make sense in some of those areas. And we already built a battery electric platform because that's what a fuel cell runs on. And so I was like, why don't there's this 40% of the market that we're just leaving out. And we're like, why would we do that when we have the ability to do it and do it first? Because we already had it developed. And so we just decided we wanted to be first in the world. And it's important to do that because a lot of people didn't have faith in Nikola at the time. A lot of people on both sides were saying, "Oh, Nikola's vaporware, they're totally fake," Well, being first to market with a full semi-truck, zero emission, that is an accomplishment that very few people in this world will ever experience. So we wanted to be that person, and we are. And that'll be out, as I said, next year in full production. And they're coming down the assembly line right now. Once COVID's open, I'm flying back over to Ulm, Germany immediately to get over there to go look at the truck builds. Because that's how far along we are. We already have stampings done. We have everything. The supply chain's done. The trucks are built. Now they just go through the rigorous last few testing protocols. So it was kind of a natural evolution of understanding that one size does not fit all. Hydrogen does really good for anything over 300 miles. Battery does everything really good under 300 miles. And they honestly don't really compete with each other, which most people don't know. They think it's like either battery or hydrogen, and then we're just going to hate each other. And it's like, look, our enemy's not each other. It's all the diesel, it's the ICE. Get rid of all that crap. There's no reason why people should not be zero emission anymore. It's completely bullshit because the tech is there. It's fully functioning. Tesla's already proven it on the car level when they got mocked by every OEM in the world. They proved it could outlast every ICE vehicle in the world, and we're now doing it with trucks. So it's game over. The damn emissions need to end. And I think that was just a natural evolution of there could be 5 of us, and we still couldn't fulfill all the orders that are going to come down the pipeline. So we're not going to hurt Tesla. They're not going to hurt us. We're going to we're really going to, when it comes to there's just so many variables. There's so much business out there that we all need to band together and really work together. in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great perspective. On that note, I would be really curious because I think a lot of people that have been critical of hydrogen, a lot of the criticism comes from the sort of wheel to well efficiency of hydrogen because you have to do so much in terms of, electrolysis and then compression, and you lose, 20, 15% sort of each step along the way in terms of what that, that initial renewable power source generated. So I'd love to hear your take on that because I think one of your guys' plans is to have those fueling stations with that on-site hydrogen production, right? With electrolysis and compression.
Yeah. That's my favorite. That's probably the best question and one of my favorite in the world because it is so deep and complex and it's fun, and I'll help simplify it. So the thing that I really ask is like, I'm going to try to lay this out in a very fair method. And if people will listen to it, they'll really understand why it's both technologies are so complementary to each other and they're really not hurting each other. Battery electric, hands down, is much more efficient when it comes to from the time you plug into the wall to drive in your vehicle, it's much more efficient. And you're going to lose a lot less energy. You don't have the losses you do with fuel cell. One thing that people don't take into consideration though is how a lot of the energy is created. Over 50% of all energy in California is not created through clean methods. It's created through dirty methods. And with those dirty methods, you have loss of efficiencies through either turbines or power generation systems that are only 20% efficient in their first place. So if you have a diesel engine or a turbine, you're only 35% efficient. Then you're sending it through the power lines and you might lose 1 or 2%. And then it gets to the vehicle and you lose another 1 or 2%, in charging, and then a couple percent on the drivetrain. So, you're going to be down in the 20% range. But people don't talk about the fact that it's all done, these losses are done prior to getting to your vehicle. And so from a grid standpoint, you have a lot of losses on both sides, on both hydrogen and battery. On a vehicle standpoint, you're right, batteries are more efficient. Now, here's where the fuel cell comes in, where it really makes sense for a fuel cell. There's two things fuel cells do. One, they balance the grid better than a battery vehicle will ever do in the world, because you can dump 100 megawatts of energy into a hydrogen facility on a whim. And you could never do that with electric vehicles because you don't know when people are going to charge. And a lot of times they're charging in the wrong time of the day. The power companies don't want it. So what happens is that with a hydrogen facility, you can dump 100, 200 megawatts down the pipe and will suck it all in. And what it does right now is they're either bleeding it off of the power grids, or they're sending it across the country to a state that actually needs it in that moment. And it takes essentially hours for the grids to balance from California over to Texas or Oklahoma. Or even further, it even goes all the way over to almost the Mississippi. So what a lot of people don't know is there's billions of kilowatt hours just completely wasted every single day. So the inefficiencies are terrible everywhere. And so fuel cell, if you look at it, you definitely have the losses going into electrolysis. You're going to lose 30% or whatever. You're going to get 60% efficiency-ish. Sometimes you can get up to 70 if you got a really good electrolysis program. Then you're going to lose another few percent here and there, and then another 20 or 30 when you reconvert it, right? So we all know that the losses exist. I would never tell anyone that they don't. But one thing that's really interesting about hydrogen is that you can create hundreds of megawatt hours of energy into hydrogen in times of the day where it'll all be wasted anyways. And so it's one of those, and energy is so cheap now that this is one point I've told people. If you pull energy out on your car in California, you can pay anywhere from 12 to 30 cents a kilowatt hour in California for energy. Depends on where you're at. When I produce hydrogen, I'm paying under 4 cents everywhere I go. And that's because we're doing it behind the grid in large quantities, and that's where people fill up. So what we're able to do is really drive down the cost of energy. It might be less efficient, true, but it's actually cheaper per mile. And so there's a lot to it. It's not a one size fit all. And once they can get batteries going far enough on the freeway, then you can do the same thing where you can start to pull energy off the grid behind the meter on the freeway, and you can even be more competitive against hydrogen once you get to that point down the road. But there's a lot of steps. It's like I always try to tell people, for the next 25 years, hydrogen and battery are going to grow together, and they'll hardly ever really compete against each other, except for the fan bases. They're the ones that really compete because the technologies don't really compete that much.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I guess what comes to mind for me is I think Tesla's attempting to solve sort of that storage problem with their utility scale storage and, at a residential level with the power walls and things like that. So it almost comes down to competing like hydrogen storage versus battery electric storage outside of the vehicle? And in that case, don't you still have those losses that makes it less efficient with hydrogen? It's something that I haven't looked into specifically, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that specifically too.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really, once batteries get to the point where they can have, 20, 30,000 cycles, then things will change quite a bit. The problem you have right now with like a battery electric truck is that, so I know right now, I like, if you look around the industry, the cost on a battery cell right now in mass production is under $2 a cell. So these are guys that are, they're buying Teslas or other, they're going to be well under $2 a cell for a cell. That comes out, if you look into the numbers, that's down there towards that $100 mark per kilowatt hour. So what does that mean? That means what happens is you're going to have on a 750,000 or 750 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're going to be well over $100,000 right now on the battery, with the battery pack included, and the thermal, and just the other stuff that comes with it, like the housing and all that. Mm-hmm. So you would have to have a $100,000 battery pack for a $100,000 battery, just so you could store energy in order to transfer it to the other. So now you have $200,000 for every truck you sell, just to be able to buffer that grid. And with hydrogen, it's that the equivalent amount of cost to be able to do that is 1/5 that cost. So what that means is for about $20,000, I can store as much energy as that $125,000 that you would with batteries. So as battery cycling gets better, as soon as it can get past like 3,000-4,000 cycles on those batteries without really an issue, say it doubles, it'll still be twice as expensive as hydrogen to store that energy. When it quadruples, it'll finally be parity. So there's a lot of like mathematics. I always tell people I don't have any emotion in this, because we offer both products, and I really try to tell people that it's all mathematics. It's all it is. So if you're storing it in hydrogen, it has an unlimited cycle life. You can store it for 20, 30 years, and the only thing you repay for is a new certification on the tanks, or new tanks. And these steel tanks are 20 years, and you can recertify them after that. When you get into the batteries, you have to not only those batteries become ruined, but then you got to recycle them. And how many mountains do you have to tear down to get the materials out? And I think Tesla's done a good job with getting rid of the cobalts and the expensive materials. And that's what we've been working on also at Nikola is a lithium battery that has no rare earth materials. And then it's like almost completely recyclable. And then you kind of don't care how many cycles it gets. It's like, who gives a crap? It's like a buck a battery, $1.50 a battery. Who cares? Like, the recyclability at that point is you're going to get double the cycles. It has zero impact environmentally, really, other than the metals. You can recycle most of that. Mm-hmm. So as time gets on, I always kind of say that like you're going to have maybe 50-50 right now in the market, or 60-40, where you can get a little more orders on hydrogen, or it might be right down the middle. As time goes on, I feel like these things are going to kind of go like this, because every industry is a little bit different. And as battery tech goes, it's going to take a little bit. And then as hydrogen advancement goes, it's going to come back. So our hydrogen truck right now is 5,000 pounds less than what you would see on a Tesla truck. So every pound's worth 50 cents on a load. So if you haul pork right now, you're at full max weight, every pound is worth 50 cents on every load you drive. So if you are 5,000 pounds different, you lost $2,500 on that load you did that day. That's $70,000 a month. If I gave you energy for free, you would still lose money. So that's why it's not just about which one's more efficient. There's a lot of other factors in play here, especially regarding weight and fill up time and turnaround time. And you can charge a hydrogen vehicle in 10 minutes. And if you charge a battery in 10 minutes, you're going to destroy it. But most people don't need a 10-minute turnaround. So it doesn't even make sense to go hydrogen if you're in a city and you don't need to turn around that fast, so.
For sure. That's super interesting. Thanks for going into that detail. One of the things that I think came up there is in terms of those hydrogen stations, you said that it's quite a bit cheaper, per energy stored for those hydrogen tanks. How much in terms of how much does an average hydrogen station, how much is that going to cost you to, build out hundreds or thousands of these over time?
Well, I'll give you kind of a range because I don't want to give it away to our competitors, but Sure. You're between about $10,000 and $20,000 a hydrogen station. This is for a minimum 8-ton station, totally done.
And that's everything all in?
That's everything all in, even the land. So if you factor that in and you look at that, that's for an 8-ton station. That would do 8,000 kilograms a day. And if you look at that energy storage, that's in the, that's enormous amount of energy. Now you lose about 30% of that when it gets back on the, when it's on the truck and you reconvert it to electricity, right? So let's just say it's 8,000 kilograms. every kilogram has about, I don't know, 55, 60 kilowatt hours. It depends on, that's how much it takes to produce it. But let's say it stores about 50 kilowatt hours, something like that. In a kilogram, you lose 30% of that. You're down to 35 kilowatt hours times 8,000 is about a quarter, is about 300 megawatt hours of energy for that $10 to $20 million. So you could, if you were to store 300 megawatt hours of energy in batteries, you'd be hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. So you can see how it's a factor of 10 times greater to store energy in batteries than it is in hydrogen.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. One of the other things too that you mentioned is sort of the battery technology advancements. And one of the things I'd love to hear about from you is, I think a few months ago, or maybe even a year ago at this point, you guys had the press release about your battery breakthrough. And we're supposed to hear a little bit more about that this fall, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. It's supposed to be sort of, I've got the specs written down here, but 500 watt hours per kilogram, which my understanding is that puts it pretty close in terms of the energy density to hydrogen. And then you have, 2000 cycles, 50% cheaper per watt hour, all these things in the press release. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and if that's something you see in your products sort of next year.
Yeah, so what we decided to do, once again, like our truck was, is that we like to pioneer tech, but we're not the best at producing it in production, right? It's just not our talent. We're not good at it. So our number one goal was to pioneer this technology and hand it off to a battery company and let them do it. And that's what we're doing right now. So we're probably about 4 months away from having our full size cells being tested into packs and bigger systems to where we can, the smaller size, no problem. We have them down to quarter scale, like the smaller size of a battery, not a full, for instance, like a 2170 from Tesla right now is about 4.8 to 5 amp hours per cell. Depends on which one it is. LG, Samsung, Panasonic, they all range from 5.2 to 4.8 amp hours per cell. So we're able to get those down to about 25% of that size of just for testing, because we don't have the equipment to build the bigger stuff. We just don't have the equipment to do it. So what we're doing right now is we're cycling those, building those. We've ordered a ton of equipment, and we're building them bigger and bigger. And then as soon as we're done with it, what we're going to do is we're actually going to hand it off to the battery companies and let them produce it for everybody. We'll get some small, tiny royalty, but our goal really is to drive down the cost of battery electric vehicles around the world, because it helps hydrogen equally as much as it does battery electric vehicles. Because these hydrogen trucks have huge batteries, like quarter megawatt hour on board. So if you can drive down the cost of that, it's a huge expense on a truck. We anticipate well under 50% the cost of. So if you're paying, say, $1.80 or $2 a cell for a lithium battery right now in mass production in the billions, you're going to be half that with this cell. You'd be about 90 cents per cell. So it'd be under 50% under what you would pay for a lithium ion. With whatever nickel, cobalt, aluminum, or nickel, whatever chemistry you have. Nickel, magnesium, cobalt, you got multiple different ones. And then Tesla's new version is slightly modified. I can't even keep track of the 10 variations that are out there right now, but it's half the cost. And so our goal really is just to produce it or innovate it and then hand it off. And we've been talking to battery companies, and we're probably just going to hand it right now. If everything goes to plan, by the year's end, our goal is really to hand it off to someone and let them commercialize it, and they'll give it to everyone around the world. That's our goal.
Got it. Okay. So right now, the biggest challenge you guys foresee with that technology and the development of it is really in the production of it. And I guess one of the questions that would come to mind is, how do you have a good understanding of the cost of it all in if the production status is a little bit unclear?
So really what you're looking at is material cost, because the same equipment's about the same no matter how you build a battery. If they're cylindrical, right? You're still going to have the same pieces of a battery. They're all going to be very similar. You're still going to have the same equipment that produces it. So ultimately the production equipment is very similar. It's made to fit in the same housing. It's the same methodology. What we do is, when you analyze the cost you would kind of analyze the cost of the material weight. So if this is how much cost it takes to do 1 amp hour, you can times it by 5, and that's pretty close to what you're going to be at. We don't know the exact cost, but instead, our goal is to have 90 cents a cell. But if it comes out and it's 98 or it's $1.04, I mean, you're still monumentally cheaper than what the current lithium ion is.
Okay. And that would be somewhere in the range of like $50 per kilowatt hour to $100 per kilowatt hour is essentially what you're getting at?
we're hoping between 50 and 70 is our goal. That's really where we're hoping for. But it's really hard, like you said, because we don't know, because we don't have the big equipment. We can't really test that. So we've been ordering equipment. We've been working with battery suppliers. They're helping us pick out equipment to test with, and they want to see these results, and so far we've had every cell we've had has passed thousands of cycles with less degradation than a lithium ion right now. And so we haven't had any failures on the cells where they're so most cells out there that have really good either cost, quality, or performance, they only last like 200 cycles and then they're dead. But when you get into the high cycle cells, no one's been able to really figure it out. And it wasn't really us. We just found some brilliant professors that were actually working on it, and we licensed all the IP from these professors, and they brought it together and helped us put it. They put it all together. They've been working on it for a long, long time, and they came to us and said, "Look, we'd love to talk to you guys about this." And we sat down, looked at it, and they were really they were great people. And I think, we'll see where it goes. It's hard to tell because it's just not there yet. In 6 months, I could give you a lot better answer. And this is one of those things that sucks because I can't give you an answer. Not that I don't want to. It's like truly don't even have one, because until I get these machines in, until we actually do the final testing with 3, 4, 5C test rates with these things at 5,000 cycles in different temperatures with vibration going on. And I can't even comment on it because I don't have the data yet.
Right. Got it. Cool. One of the things that was recently in the news was the partnership with Ryder, and maybe this is similar to sort of how you guys have been reevaluating, because I guess going back to like Nikola World 2019, there was a lot of focus on the vertical integration and that value add from the company, and now it seems like it's shifted a lot more towards the partnership to sort of add the speed and things like that. Is that a similar situation with the recent Ryder news, or can you just give us a little more detail on that?
Yeah, Ryder was interesting because, as our business model has been evolving, it's crazy. People don't realize how many times a month we have to sit down with our business model and look at it and reevaluate how you actually do this. And everyone does it. Doesn't matter who you are. Sit down and you're like, there's 5 new companies that come into the market, and they're all hitting different points, and you have to figure out how to kind of weave in and out of all this to be successful. And Ryder was a great partner. They helped us get to where we were today. And we sat down with Ryder and we're like, look, hey guys, here's all the first stations we're about ready to launch. We went over all of them. This is what we're going to do. This is how many trucks we have. This is how all the factories going to be up, and this is how many trucks are coming off. This is where they're going to be delivered. This is where we need pre-delivery inspections. This is where we need hydrogen stations, where we need service. We need service on site. We need warranty here. We need backup parts. We need third-party logistics. And it was like, holy shit. Like, they didn't realize that we didn't, at that time, when we signed the deal with them, we didn't have an Iveco. We didn't have a group to help us get to full speed that fast. We all thought we had another 3 years to really think about how to make this everything kind of go smoothly. With everything coming down next year, we sat down and they're like, hey, Trevor, look, you guys can't do anything with hydrogen outside of us, and we can't do anything with hydrogen outside of you. And it's going to be really hard to have that kind of capital intensive budget being put on one company for the whole country. I mean, it's just monumental. And so we all just agreed that the best thing we could do is allow each other to fully work outside of that agreement to where we're no longer bound by exclusivity. So Ryder can go work with anyone on hydrogen now, and up until that point they couldn't. And now we can go work with anyone on service. So we're going to start actually going to we have dealerships all over the country that we've been in contact with, and a lot of them wanted to do a deal with us before we did a deal with Ryder. So we got a list of all these dealerships, and we're going to start signing these dealerships up around the country. And soon our trucks will be serviced, sold, and warrantied through these big truck dealerships all over the country. In the very similar method, this is where we really deviate away from the Tesla model, is we're really big dealership believers. We think that they're probably one of the most valuable assets to your brand. And so I think that's one area where I think that it'll cause a little bit of heartburn for some of the Tesla investors, is that we're very polar opposite of that. But there's pros and cons to each. I mean, I have friends that have a Tesla. They have damaged parts. It's been almost 14 months. They still can't get parts. So not having your dealership network, it can hurt you, but it also can save you a lot of money and make you faster and more efficient. So Tesla has an awesome business model on their phone to be able to get you in and out. But that's assuming that they have parts, and that the capital intensity of a dealership network is insane. So that's why we just decided to partner with dealerships. Is one, they're going to pay us to sell, service, and warranty our trucks. So we'll raise a substantial amount of money through that. And second one is that we don't have to worry about financing our trucks because they're going to be the ones buying them. And, their leasing companies are going to be the ones paying us for the leases. So it's pretty cool how that's going to work out.
So you guys are going to sell the trucks to the dealerships, and they're then going to be responsible for servicing the trucks and providing all of the parts? Or where do the parts end up coming from then?
So we do ship the parts to the dealerships for housing. So they'll have you'll have third-party logistics centers, and then you'll have parts on site at all the dealerships. Very similar to like what you do at, Volvo right now. If you have a broken mirror, you can walk into a Volvo dealership and pick up a mirror on the spot. They have it in their warehousing right there. So it's the same thing. Like we'll have all of our parts at these dealership locations. And that way we don't have to house them. Because they're already paying us for them. So it's an instant stream of revenue. You can have your factories up and running for those parts. You can build more parts. All the dealerships buy them. They stock them. It allows you to have instant access to parts, most of them. And it becomes a lot less capital intensive when it comes to servicing your customers. So yeah, all the dealerships will handle everything for us at this point on.
Got it. So in terms of the biggest constraints for you guys then over the next couple of years, do you see that being capital in terms of building out, infrastructure, or do you see it being just raw production, getting it up to speed, or what are the biggest things that will be bottlenecks for you guys over the next few years as you sort of ramp up?
I think a lot of it is really the quality. Just making sure your quality is dead on, because you can build a lot of trucks. It's not hard to build a lot of trucks once you have the factories and you have the experience. The biggest one is if you have a recall on a battery that's $100,000 battery, you're screwed. Like it's not like a car. It's not like it's not like a car where you're eating. Tesla might eat. I say Tesla because a lot of your guys are Tesla fans. So this could equal. This could be to Audi or to Jaguar. But I'm speaking to a lot of Tesla fans here, so I just want to. Understand why I keep saying Tesla for that, to help you guys just relate with your knowledge. But a battery on a Model S, that might be $10,000 or something, right? Or whatever, or 12 or 14. And you can deal with that part. But when you get into a truck and you have a major failure, it could bankrupt your company for one problem. It doesn't take very many $100,000 batteries to wipe your company's, reserves out. So the one that we worry the most about every single day is the complete reliability of massive abuse on a battery over a period of 1 million miles, because these semi trucks, the G loads a semi truck receives is in an order of magnitude of hundreds of times more than a car. It's like the amount of frequencies and vibration they get is just insanity. It just literally shakes the ground, and with that much weight, it creates even more oscillation, and it becomes problematic. So we figured it out, but I can guarantee you we're gonna have a bunch of trucks broken down and shit broken down everywhere that we have to go and fix. And I think that's our biggest bottleneck is don't run too fast. The market's big enough for others to succeed, and we just need to go slow enough that we can keep a good quality product and not ruin our name.
Got it. So with the reverse IPO with VectoIQ, you guys feel like you're in a good capital position to sort of get to where you want to be and have that be cash flow positive and then build from there?
Yeah, we raised over $700 million in this IPO. On Thursday, it's all that funds in. We had quite a bit of money on hand already. And after that, it's all in our filings. And after that, we'll have about, with the warrants that'll essentially be called in from once you hit a certain mark, then people can exercise their warrants. We'll be over $1 billion in cash sitting in our account. And that's a good feeling. We have no debt. We're not servicing debt. We don't, we're actually we're not that big of a company. We're 350 employees. So our burn rate's really low, a couple $1 million a month. You're not dealing with a $100 million a month burn rate. So we do a lot of outside engineering work. We use Iveco, and we use other groups like ZF or Bosch or Continental or Wabco, and they help us develop a lot of these parts. And so we own the IP, but they're the ones actually doing all the work, and it helps eliminate a lot of that capital expense you would normally have. And then the last thing I'd say is once you have these first trucks out on the road and you have your hydrogen stations actually, being built and done and trucks running, we can go to the capital market for billions if we wanted to at that point. Because the whole entire business model is completely, at that point, there's no more risk. It's just full production, pedal to the metal. That's all it is. Just kind of like what the current situation with what Tesla's doing right now. It's just pedal to the metal is really all it is.
Right. Got it. on the Tesla point, I think my listeners would not forgive me if I didn't ask about this. You guys had the lawsuit against the Tesla Semi. I think that turned off a lot of Tesla investors because, as you said, it's sort of, I think a lot of the mission between Nikola and Tesla is similar of like, let's reduce emissions and let's go forward. So that lawsuit seemed a little bit counterproductive towards that mission. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is one that's really hard for me because it was actually misreported by a lot of people immediately, like right up front, that were mad at us for it. They didn't even care about the facts. And it was really sad for me because these are people that I respected prior. And then they just literally let their emotions get the best of them. And they didn't report. They actually got emotional. And it severed our relationship with some of these reporters. I don't even talk to them anymore because I can't trust someone that can't just look at facts and just be like, okay, look, I'm going to let the emotion go. Let's talk face to face. Factual, no bullshit. Let's just talk. And they wouldn't do that. And that was a Fred one. That was a really hard thing for me because I really liked that guy. It was one of my most sad moments I've had in Nikola's history, was seeing these people turn on me for something that they knew nothing about. And they got an emotional response out of anger because they were afraid of losing their access to Elon and Tesla. So it was a very difficult thing for me. I'll level with all the Tesla fans. And what they don't know is, prior to Tesla launching this truck, we knew about the truck. We knew a lot of details, a ton. And they actually reached out and tried to hire our chief engineer. And so they don't know that Tesla actually was making offers to our chief engineer to try to recruit him away to come compete with us. So we didn't throw the first stone. And on top, and I never went to their chief guys and tried to hire him away ever. But that's okay. You know, everyone can work for who they want. That's not a big deal. The part that got real hard was we knew what they were doing. And we went to them and we said, guys, look, we really want to work. We don't want to hurt you. We don't want you guys to hurt yourself. We don't want you to come out with something that's using these patents. And here's why we use them. Has nothing to do, well, it has a little bit to do with design. Everyone wants their own design. Everyone wants someone to recognize their vehicle. But that's like 5% of what the lawsuit's even about. And this is where the media was reporting, oh, it's all about the design. It looks like the same thing. And screw you, Nikola. How dare you sue these guys? So it was a little hard because it had like 5% to do with design and 95% not to do with design. And I'll talk about what that is. There are very specific things. When I first started developing this truck, the coefficient of drag was impossible to achieve without moving the door behind the driver. And this had never been done up to this point. Some people have built mock-ups of things, but the patent office doesn't consider that a patent. You've got to actually show utility usage of it. So they know nothing about patent law. If they did, they would, if you don't like it, go change patent law. But here's the facts of America, how the patent office has been set up since the foundation of our country. You have to show that you're going to use something. You have to show the utility of it, and you have to show why it actually solves a problem. And through that, you have to show novelty, which is something that is new and unique. By moving that door behind the cab, you could move the driver all the way up next to the glass. The driver would have a very good visibility all the way around the truck. By doing that now, you have a very aerodynamic cab. We knew that Tesla's design, because someone had told us about it, we knew that Tesla's design was very similar to ours up until that point. And what we did is we reached out to Tesla. So this is where a lot of Tesla people investors don't know this, or fans, because of the reporting. We actually reached out to them. We said, hey guys, we want to meet with you. Please meet with us. I want to work with you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to. We're in this together, but the most important thing is we just don't want you to use our patents, or if you do, we want to work with you so you can do it the right way. And essentially their response was piss off. And that was a really hard thing for us, because their response was, at first they wouldn't even respond. Then finally we had to get aggressive with them. And then they just said, we don't give it, screw you. Like, we don't care. What are you going to do? So, what are you going to do? And that's not the attitude you have if we weren't the ones throwing stones. We were the ones trying to work with them. And so we sat down, we tried to work with them, and they refused. And in the United States, if you don't defend your patents, you lose them. So we had an obligation a fiduciary obligation to our shareholders, because we spent millions of dollars developing these, and we're the first ones to ever do it. And without, I don't know if you know this, but without our patent, I shouldn't say impossible. It is very close to being impossible to ever compete with a diesel without our patents, because the aerodynamics go up almost 30% higher if you don't have that flat nose that essentially what we have, that fuselage and door behind the seat. And so we came and we said, look, we know you guys we have 3 different patents. We have design patents, and then we have 2 utilities which are really important. One is the door behind the seat that allows the driver to enter in from behind the seat. And the second one is the fuselage, which is for the aerodynamics of the truck, the curvature essentially of the front of the truck. And so that was the hard part. We went to them and they essentially just told us to take a hike, screw you, we don't care. And then we had to defend ourselves. We had no choice. And if we didn't, every other person in the world would be taking it. So Tesla took us to, we filed the lawsuit. People got all pissed off about it. They knew nothing about it. I really tried to help people understand. They just had no desire to know. They didn't care. It was just full on attack mode. And people know this inside the Tesla community. When the fans get mad, sometimes it's not fair to other people because they literally attack them and they'll cost people their jobs. It's really unfortunate. They need to be support. Like they need to understand how much damage they can actually do as a following and also how much good they can do. So I'll put it on the good side. They can do a lot of good. If you look at that, we had to file that lawsuit. And then what happened was Tesla came back and essentially tried to counter sue on it to say, no, your patents aren't valid. And we want the patent office to invalidate them and change them. So they took us to court, took us to patent office court, and the highest patent office court in the land, the USPTO this is impossible to appeal, by the way. So it's the highest level because they took it to the highest level. And the head examiners looked at it and said, they looked at Tesla's case, our case, and they came down, they said, unfortunately, Nikola's patents are very strong. They were built the correct way. They were designed the correct way. And they even reached out to you prior to you guys launching your truck. You showed essentially at that point, they said, not only does Nikola have the patents, they're solid. Not only are we going to deny your motion to dismiss the patent, to invalidate the patents, we're also going to deny your motion to change them, which means now Nikola, it's damn near impossible to ever change our patent, to invalidate our patents because they've already ruled on it on the highest level. So that was what just barely happened about 3 weeks ago. And we have no desire to harm Tesla. We don't. The hard part is here we are. This is what we are. We're a company. We've raised $1 billion. We have our trucks coming out in production. We want to head start against our biggest competitors in the world. And Tesla's got an unlimited amount of cash. They can borrow money whenever they want and take in as much money as they ever want. Their stock's at $900 a share. They could take $10 billion tomorrow and squash us if they wanted to with losses that they don't even care about. The only thing that allows us to be competitive is the laws in the United States. And that's ultimately what it is we own the patents on it. And just like they're going to defend the patents on their new battery, they're going to go out and make sure no one conflicts with it. They have a fiduciary responsibility to do that, and so do we. So I hope that I spent more time on this than I've ever spent with anybody. But I really wanted your listeners to know that this was not a Nikola attack on Tesla. As a matter of fact, it was a complete opposite. And we have every desire in the world. If Elon would call me and say, Trevor, I want to talk to you. Let's make amends, I would do it. He refuses to do it. He's too prideful to do it. It's not on me. It's on him. Like, I've been so cool to him. I've really tried. I've reached out. I've extended an arm of everything. And he has zero desire whatsoever. And that's okay. Like, I just want people to know it wasn't us. Like, I really tried to work with them. I've gone out of my way. So I hope that helps you guys understand the whole story behind that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you giving us that sort of detail because I do think, to your point, there are people within the Tesla community that can be a little bit, incited by what they perceive as a threat, and then they can go out and sort of unleash some fury on those people on occasion.
Yeah.
But to your point too, there's a lot of good too, and it's not everyone in the Tesla community, and I'm sure you'd agree with that as well. But that's really helpful to see. There's always two sides to every story. I'm sure we'd love to get Tesla's side of this too, but it's really helpful to have yours. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just checking my list here to see if we have anything else. I think that's covered, a lot of what I wanted to get to. Is there anything else on your end that you just feel like we should maybe discuss, or anything else that you'd want to let people know about?
I think maybe a couple things. One is, when's the end of diesel, right? I think that's probably one of the questions that I really enjoy talking about that will help. That I think was missed a little bit on this was none of this that we're doing and none of this that Tesla's doing is worth anything if we don't actually get rid of all the crap out there that doesn't need to exist anymore and the harmful solutions that they are. Diesel across the board is in trucking is no longer important. It needs to go away. And the technology is there now to do it. So I think that's one cool thing we can really work together with on I'm trying to find ways to work with Tesla to really try to help, to come together and try to help this world. And I hope that's one area where we can find common ground and we can say, you know what, let's go after the diesel community. Let's really shut this thing down, at least in the trucking world. Now, in time, we can do the same thing with the marine world and other worlds, but we just need time. We can do one at a time. There's just no reason for people to be driving these trucks out there anymore at all. It's the electric and the fuel cell now outperform diesel in every category. Because on hydrogen side, you have the weight advantage, and on electric side, you have the cost advantage. You combine those two together, it is the end of all diesel. We have a hashtag at Nikola called "Diesel is Dead," and it's true. Diesel is dead now, and I think that's one area where we can find a lot of awesome common ground with everybody here. Is there is no one out there that's trying to make as much change as Tesla, except for Nikola. That's all we offer. We don't have a diesel platform to go sell, or a gasoline. Like these other guys I always call them imposters, because they talk a big talk about how they're going electrification. Oh yeah, we got a 1,000,000-mile battery. We're the best in the world, whatever. You guys don't give a shit about electric vehicles. The only reason why you're doing it is you don't want to be kicked off your board. That's the only reason why these guys are even talking about it. And I promise you that, because every day they're cussing inside of their building about electrification, about the money they have to spend, and they're a bunch of imposters. And I think that's what's really cool about Nikola and Tesla, is we're given the name after the greatest inventor in the world, the true best homage in the world. Together we can attack the entire emission problem around the world, and together we can be successful. We don't need to ride their coattails. They've already proven how good they are. Like he's proven how good his cars are. I don't need to he's done an incredible job. And now we're doing the same thing with trucks and semi trucks and everything else. So it's an exciting time. And I hope that we can get rid of, I hope that's like our common goal right there, is let's go squash these imposters, as Kevin O'Leary would say, like the cockroaches they are.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the aquatic market, which brought to mind a really interesting question for me. I'd just love to hear your thoughts on sort of the aviation market too. Do you see hydrogen at play in there, or full electric, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a pilot as well.
Okay. No, I
fly
didn't.
a lot. Yeah, I fly about 500 hours a year, so it's no joke. I fly a lot, and I love aviation like through my blood. It's just everything in life. I love taking off and landing a plane. There's very few things in this world as complicated, technical, beautiful, gorgeous, and 1 out of 10 times you do it how you want to do it. The rest of the 9, you're hoping for that one. And and it's just an amazing thing. And I think that aviation is going to go. I think a lot of it will go. I think you're going to see hydrogen go mostly for the bigger planes, where weight is a really big problem, and you're doing passenger loads. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff go hydrogen for long distance stuff or heavy load. For all the city hoppers, what we call them, the 400 or 500 mile range, I think a lot of those will all go battery. So it'll be very similar to the trucking world, where kind of the range and weight is really the deciding factor for the tech. And once the batteries get about 4 or 5 times more energy dense, then that may switch over. But right now, I think you're going to see a lot of aviation going hydrogen, liquid hydrogen on the bigger planes, and then you're going to see a lot of aviation going battery electric on the smaller planes.
Do you guys have aspirations to be in that market at all?
No, but I'm happy to give my tech. I'll work with anyone. We've had multiple companies call us, and I would be happy to teach them everything we know. And I'm just happy to teach them. I don't want any of it. I just want to. You guys can go do it, man. I'm busy enough with my workload. I'm stuck for 10 years. I don't need another project on my lap for 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think that's a great spot to leave it then, Trevor. I really appreciate you coming on, share your perspective on a lot of these issues.
Yeah, I want to say one thing to you. First of all, thanks for being prepared. So I don't know all your listener base. I haven't spent a lot of time. I've seen you around, but I don't know your listener base as well as a lot of your listeners do. Mm-hmm. So I do hundreds of interviews, and there's only about 5% that actually know what they're talking, that really study and know what they're doing. So number one, thanks for actually really studying and understanding and having good questions. Number two, thanks for being methodical about your thinking. I really appreciate that, because I'm trying to get emotion out of some of the decision making, so we can all just get to the best solution in the world and complement each other. And number three, obviously, is thanks for giving me a true open platform to I haven't denied one of your questions. I've been very open, and I really appreciate you guys, just giving me that chance. And you'll definitely get blowback by some of your people. There's no doubt. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
But I hope I've been personable enough to know that that I'd love to come back anytime you ever want to have me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back on. I really, that's what I'm all about, is trying to provide that open platform and to, approach things with, fact-based approach. And I think a lot of my listeners are the same way. So I know people are really going to enjoy having this opportunity to hear this.
Well, I appreciate it. Once you're done uploading this, let us know the link and I'll post it everywhere, because this has been a really good interview, because you know your stuff.
Thanks.
So
I really appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right, awesome.
Thanks, guys.
See you later, Trevor.